Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service and jbiztechvalley.com. We have a very, very special guest with us, Rich Mendick, and he's the Albany County Legislator of our own little district of Bethlehem, Selkirk, a lot of other areas in Albany County. But in any case, Rich, welcome to the Jewish View.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity.
No, welcome. We should have had you on a long time ago.
Well, I appreciate being here.
What other communities do you represent besides Selkirk?
Well, Selkirk is the one that I live in, but I also have South Bethlehem through the redistricting that happened as part of the recent new census in 2010. I now have Fierbush, and I do still have parts of Glenmont.
Oh, good. Okay.
It's all in our viewing area.
That's right.
Yes.
So you've been in the county legislature how many?
I'm in my second term, so about 7 years now.
And what did you do before you were county legislator?
Well, I spent a period of time, about 5 years. I was the full-time caregiver for my father, who happened to be an invalid. And prior to that, I was the chief financial officer for a national safety products company, Protective Industrial Products, that's out in Guilderland.
Mm-hmm. And so you're a numbers guy?
I'm a numbers guy.
Right.
Proud to be one.
What do you think? Yeah, I didn't say you're a geek. I said you're a numbers guy. I just want to know, what did you think of the county budget the way it is now, as opposed to what the impression was maybe a year or two ago?
Well, the one thing that I was very glad to see was that we finally have got to a point where we come in under the tax cap, or at the tax cap. I actually put in a resolution a few years ago to try to get that accomplished. We didn't go anywhere, but we're there now, and that's a very important point because it at least puts some constraints on our spending.
And the tax cap is 2%.
It's 2% plus or minus a little bit based upon a lot of factors. It's a very complex formula, and I think this year we were at 1.86.
Okay. So you were pretty happy you voted for this budget, or in favor of this budget?
I was in favor of the tax cap. There was a number of things that the majority party put into this budget, moved stuff around, that I was not in favor of it, and I voted against it.
Okay, so what weren't you in favor of?
Gee, that's, my memory is not going to serve me on this one. One of the things that I didn't like to do is that normally what they would do when you have a person that you are...
Put the wire on.
Oops, sorry.
That's all right. Yeah.
For staffing positions, let's say that you have a clerk position, and that will be a single line item in the budget. What the majority party says, we don't want to fund that single line item. We just want to take all those dollars and put them in a big contingency fund. What happened effectively is that when the budget was passed, if you had dollars on that line, you were now empowered to hire that position. What they did was, by putting in a contingency, every time that you want to hire somebody, you now have to run the gauntlet of the Personnel Committee and the Audit and Finance Committee to get approval, and then the full legislature to get approval of that line item.
Okay, so now you're, just so the audience knows, you're a member of you sit with the Republican caucus.
That is correct.
But you're a member of the Conservative Party?
I am the first and only member of the Conservative Party to be elected to the county legislature.
Now, I got to tell, on your own merit, but you also run on the Republican line?
I do.
Okay.
I enjoyed the endorsement of both the Republican and the Independence Party.
And the Conservative.
As well as the Conservative Party.
So I wanted to, I said to the County Conservative Party chairman one time that it's really a county legislature of conservatives, because he gives his endorsement to the a majority of the county legislators.
Yes.
And they should, he should have some sort of event celebrating the conservatives in the county legislature, and he never went with it. But
it doesn't surprise me.
But you see how many of the Albany Democrats seek the Conservative Party line, and then I don't know if you think that they're conservative in their voting record, but
there are a few that are conservative in their voting record, but primarily they seek that line knowing full well the more lines you have, the more likely you are to get elected. So while they'll seek that line, they don't really have the philosophy.
Or the ideology
Right.
of that party.
Exactly.
But that makes it phony to some extent.
Well, that's your words, Mark.
I know.
I'm gonna steer away from that a little.
No, that's, I'm just saying. That's
I would love to see a more conservative approach in the.
You know, it's just interesting because we, in many shows, we have Albany County legislators that are Democrats, but you're in the Republicans, so you're in the minority. I mean, what kind of impact do you have as a minority member in the Albany County legislators? Like, I mean, the Assembly, many people will say, you know, in the New York State Assembly, a Republican doesn't really have that much say-so. I mean, you feel you have an impact
Well,
into
there are 10 out of 39 that are Republican.
That is
That's
correct. And what we call the
25%.
minority caucus, yes. And you're absolutely right. We are what is known as a super minority, which means from a voting block, we can't get anything passed. And it even goes so far as that the majority party will make every effort to keep things that we put forward out of the public eye. But that doesn't stop us from bringing up the issues, and I think that is the role that at least I have taken on, and I know many of my colleagues in the Republican Party have done the same thing, is we need to at least bring those issues to the public, make them aware of what is going on, and they can, make their decisions at the voting booth, in the next election.
And that takes a lot of, do you have a social media network set up amongst the Republican caucus that, how do you get the word out? Because the media doesn't cover what you say.
We send out press releases. We do have, a website, and we have, Christine Mendick used to have a blog in the TU.
I think she still does.
She may still.
Yeah.
She's no longer the chair. She's the deputy chair. Lee Carmen is now the
Right.
chairman of the minority caucus. So we do have those avenues. And we do make every effort, like what I'm doing now, just to try to get that word out.
Okay, so couldn't you be more?
Absolutely, we can
more
always
proactive
be. Absolutely, we could always be
about
more
this?
proactive. We've attempted things, and we will continue to attempt things.
Okay, so what's your big hot button issue now that you're, for 2014 that you're trying to get out there that people don't know about?
Well, there really are two big issues.
Okay.
The first one is the Albany County Nursing Home, which is not a new issue. It has been on the agenda literally for a dozen years. We are now trying to establish a LDC, a local development corporation, whose sole responsibility would be the operation of the Albany County Nursing Home. But there are some real problems with that, and let me just give you a little bit of background so you have the context. Albany County Nursing Home loses about $1 million a month, and that means that their expenses are $1 million more than whatever reimbursements that they're bringing in. That's $12 million a year. The total Albany County budget is just under $700 million. Now, most of it, 90% of it, are state mandates, so we have no control over it. And, of course, the state will then contribute to a lot of that. So the tax levy that you and I have to pay for is about $85 million. Well, $12 million out of that 85 is going to sustain the Albany County Nursing Home. That's a little more than 10% of every dollar that you and I contribute goes to this one facility. And just to give you some idea, we spent $12 million on a facility that houses less than 250 people. There are 60,000 seniors in Albany County of this a little over 300,000 residents. And their total programs for the aging, we spend less than $2.2 million.
It's really
Wow.
out of proportion. Really.
It's way out of proportion, and it could be solved, and that's what we've been working very, very hard at.
So are you optimistic that this guy from Long Island, from Nassau County, who's coming in to be the executive director of this nursing home, is going to be successful with his plan? He's mentioned, he's met with your caucus, I hope? Or
He's not met with our caucus, but he has met with the Elder Care Committee, and
Okay.
while
And
I'm
you're
not a
on that?
member, I wish I were a member,
Okay.
but though I'm not a member, I still go to the meetings, and I've asked lots of questions. And to answer your question directly, I think that he does not have a very good chance to put in the measures that would necessary to bring that operating facility into some reasonable financial constraints. And the reason for that is that Albany County, the majority party, want to continue to control the operation of that nursing home. Even though they want to shift it to a local development corporation, LDC, they still want control. And let me give you a perfect example. Within the documents that was recently voted on, and I voted against it, I actually tried to get it deferred, but is the concept that the employees for the Albany County nursing home under an LDC will be leased from Albany County. So they will still be Albany County employees.
That way they get the health benefits.
They get the health care, they get the pension, they get all that. We had 4 or 5 studies done in my short tenure. Every one of the studies came back and said, and these are studies that compare the operation of the Albany County nursing home with peer county facilities. They all came back and said the same thing. There's too much staffing, they're too highly paid, their benefits are far too robust comparatively. And so what does the majority party say? We basically want to maintain that status. To me, as an accountant, we're attempting to lock in the one root problem of running that facility in a viable manner.
Wow.
You think it can be run in a viable manner once you're saying that as an account also? Is there a possibility, of...
He's saying it can. I think he's saying it can, but it's not the way that's being proposed.
Well, let me give you. Let me explain with a specific example. Mr. McCoy came in and he had a plan that we endorsed, and I spoke on this numerous times, that we were going to lease the operation of the Albany County nursing home to a company that had 11 other nursing homes in the state of New York. They are the go-to company by the State Department of Health. When they have a nursing home that's faltering, they go to this company and make them the receivers. Now, they were willing to come in and run our operation because they felt that over a period of time, 3 to 5 years, that they could bring it into a break-even or slightly profitable situation. So yes, I think it can be done. But the way that we're approaching it now, I don't think that it can be accomplished.
The guys from Nassau County, these current guys are saying that they can do it in a year to 18 months or something like that.
That's what they said.
And you don't think that has a chance?
They have some major obstacles because part of the problem is that if we talk about all the staffing issues, whether it be just the number, whether it be their compensation, whether it be their benefits, these are all union contracts. Now, they would have to get the unions to back off of those contracts substantially. And I just don't see that happening.
Right. What about the more efficient use of the beds? Because you said that it's a 250-bed facility, but not all 250 beds are being used because some people, elderly people, need a single room.
That's correct.
And they have 2 beds in the room, so 1 bed can't be used because this individual who's the client, patient, whatever word you use now, needs a single room.
Yeah.
So these folks who are going to come in said that they can redesign this to make it more efficient in terms of the use of the beds, which brings in more Medicaid dollars, which brings in more revenue.
What I thought I heard them say, and they may have said that, Mark, and I'm not contradicting you, but what I heard them say is that what they would do is they would go back to the health department on those individuals that have been designated as they need to be by themselves, and try to get them redesignated so that people could be put in their rooms.
Oh, okay. And that's so you can use that extra bed, not
That's
to
correct.
make more single
But it's
rooms
and
that
it's,
are truly single
Yeah.
rooms, then instead of using a double as a single.
But it's not like there's tens of thousands of these rooms. I mean, it's not like there's 30 or 40 or 50 of these rooms. The normal rate of occupancy in the home is somewhere between 230 and 240.
Oh, so it's almost.
It's almost there,
capacity.
and some of that's going to just be transition. So there's not a lot that they can be gained. Clearly, there can be some, and yet That is, they have to look at every nook and cranny for those types of savings.
Can they do something with staffing and like through attrition? So if a nurse or someone retires, that they don't have to replace them, and maybe that could save some money?
Again, they could do that, but
Have they talked about that?
They haven't talked about that because these are all union positions.
I understand.
You'd have to get agreement from the union to attrit that position.
Really?
Sure.
You just can't not fill it.
No, because the
Even-
union will come back and say, look, what you're doing is you are understaffing the nursing home, and that's putting our staff at risk as well as the patients.
Do you think there's enough staff for the nursing home, or do you think there's too much staff for the
According
nursing
to, I'm not an expert in nursing homes, so I
No,
go by
but-
what the experts have said,
Right.
and you compare it to the peers, like Van Rensselaer Manor and a few of those others, that we have about, I don't know, a third to a half, maybe more people than we really should.
home? Oh, okay.
I mean, it's a significant number, and of course that number will fluctuate, but it's a significant number.
So you think that there could be downsizing on staffing without causing harm to the patients, clients in the nursing home?
It would put us in a similar position with all the other nursing homes.
Okay, which is when they're not endangered. All the other nursing homes you don't feel are endangering their patients.
I wouldn't think so. The health
Okay.
department watches this. They come in and inspect.
Good.
They
Have
know
you been
these
to the
things.
nursing home?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And what are your impressions personally about the nursing home?
It's a nursing home.
Does it smell? What does it
I-
smell like a nursing home?
No.
Does it feel like? Is
It
it?
feels like a nursing home because nursing home feels like a nursing home. I mean,
Does it feel decrepit? Does it feel like it's as old as the patients? I mean,
it does suffer from some deferred maintenance, that's for sure.
Okay.
They have issues, the roof leaks, and we authorized more than $1 million to have the roof repaired. There are some issues. It used to be a much bigger facility, and they've just kind of pared it down. And there was the anticipation that it was going to be replaced.
right.
So they weren't going to pour a whole bunch of money into
But
it.
now
So
they-
there's that deferred maintenance issue.
Let's go to another issue, and
Sure.
it actually was the headlines in the Times-Union that Bethlehem area, which again, like you are the legislator, or of at least some of Bethlehem, that the assessments are going through the roof. And I mean, this was a major issue. I mean, everything's an issue, but this was even headline story. So, we have, again, Mark and I have many legislators or councilmen and state assembly people, even senators. And in any case, Bethlehem people say, oh, we're doing very well with the budget. And I don't know why they have to, why all of a sudden excess, which means that there's going to be a lot more taxes coming in. I mean, if you're in the hole, you got to find money from somewhere. But if you're doing well with the budget, why does they have to look for extra money and squeeze people?
Well, it's not really a question of looking for extra money. It is the apportionment of that tax levy amongst the homeowners in the town. And to say it differently is that while the budget is going to be, and Mr. Clarkson has said, the budget increase they expect to keep within the tax caps, so it's going to be less than 2%. So it's not like they're going to get a whole lot more money. They're just going to spread it out a little more equitably amongst all of the properties in the town. Now, the state likes you to go through a reassessment to take into account market values and things like that about every 4 years. I think that we've gone 6 or 7 years between assessments. But what has also happened, and they found out when they went through the process, is that the large open tracts of land have not really been reassessed for a number of years, much more than 6 or 7, and it may be twice that number.
This is farmland?
Some
or
of it,
somebody's 5 acres backyard, like a big ranch house?
Wooded area.
and it's
Yeah.
both of those. Farmland is part of it, but we don't have that many active farms in Bethlehem. What we do have is, just like you say, somebody who has 5 acres and they've got, 4 acres is all forest. And that portion of it is now has had increased value put to it. And so what happens is that the total value of the taxes needed, and whatever that number might be, and let's just use an example. Let's say it's $30 million, and I don't know what it is for Bethlehem off the top of my head. Well, let's say it's $30 million. the amount of total property and how it's spread out, that's the divisor that gets divided into that number. That number has now changed. So what Mr. Clarkson has said, and I believe it to be true, is that many people, and let's just assume that your piece of property did not change assessment.
I'm sure it didn't. Rather.
Yeah. Didn't change. Your taxes will probably go down.
How did you do with your property in Selkirk?
It stayed exactly the same, but
did.
I'm in a different, I'm in a different school district, and it's a little more
I
rural.
understand, but I like to put the personal touch on it.
It stayed the same.
So these other folks, I mean, there's some big names out there that are prominent names in the area. People have their roads named after their family.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, have they been in touch with you? But is there anything you can really do on the county level? Because the county doesn't give money to offset anything like this. So
it's not a county issue. It really is a town issue, and I have heard from these people primarily in the meetings that have been held by the town, and a lot of them are saying, what they're going to do with their 5 acres is they're going to have someone come in, cut all those trees down, sell off the wood, and then they'll sell the property.
And you don't think that's a threat? You don't think they're just threatening?
No. I think that it's a
and
true
you can do
statement.
that according to zoning.
It's their
laws.
property, yeah.
Why, you can just build whatever you want?
No, not build, but you could sell your property.
Yeah.
I mean, sell off a few acres.
Whoever
Sure.
wants to buy it.
If they can subdivide it, they may sell off the whole thing just because. In one case, this one gentleman was saying his property went from an assessment of $100,000 a year to $800,000 a year. Now, regardless of how much the incremental tax rate may go down, when you sustain an increase like that, it's going to have a tremendous impact on your pocketbook. And most of them are saying, we will not be able to afford it. Even though this property has been in my family for generations, and I know the Selkirks out on Maple Ave in Selkirk, their great-great ancestor fought in the Revolutionary War. There's
Really?
a plaque out that, in one of the small little flower gardens, that talks about
how the community was named and who it was.
Absolutely.
There was a family called Selkirk. Huh?
They're still there.
They're still there.
They're still there.
Okay.
And they're going to see this tremendous increase. And just like happens with many of our senior citizens who have been in their homes for 30 or 40 years, they're almost lifetime residents in Bethlehem, and they've just seen the property taxes go up and up and up and up.
Yeah,
and they can, they no longer can afford to
But
live.
they're getting more and more services from when they first started. So, it's a growing community.
It is a growing
and
community.
there are more services. I know the bus line has certainly changed, but the waters and the sewers and the infrastructure has really went by leaps and bounds in 30 years. I mean, it's so
yes,
much.
Yeah, in some areas.
Yeah.
In my area of Selkirk, while we have town water, we will never see sewers.
Okay.
It's too expensive a proposition for them now.
Okay, but you still got to pay. You're still part of the town. and
Oh, absolutely.
So you still got to pay.
You
for
still have
other
to pay
people.
for it,
Yeah.
even though you're not getting the benefit of it. You still have to pay
the
for
elderly,
it, but that's okay.
The elderly pay school taxes, and
Absolutely.
they don't have anyone in the school system. So,
It's that whole
yeah.
community
That's right,
issue.
right.
That you're part of the community. You pay for all of the services that people enjoy. Because if you tried to parcel it out, that people couldn't afford it. A young family with 2 or 3 school-age children obviously could never afford the burden of paying for school taxes.
Right.
If they had to bear the full burden of it.
That's right. So how much of the town of Bethlehem's taxes are tax exempt? How much property is tax exempt?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause
Again, I'm on the county side.
No, but you're a numbers
Yeah.
guy. So
I
that's
am a
why,
numbers guy,
That's
yep.
why, and I thought maybe your wife is the receiver of taxes,
Yes,
Nancy.
that's
so
correct.
I just wanted to know maybe there was conversation.
No, that's not a number that we usually talk about.
Okay. Because in Albany it's 80%.
It is
Yeah.
80%, yes.
In the city of Albany it's tax exempt because of all the religious exemptions, the state land,
Right.
other
Government-
colleges. yeah.
Government buildings,
That's right.
absolutely.
So I just
No,
threw
we
it
don't-
out just
yeah.
to,
We don't have, obviously, we're nowhere near the kind of numbers that the city of
Yeah.
Albany is, but I'm sure there are some.
Mhm.
But it's just, my concern about this whole assessment issue is that if the large landowners cannot afford the taxes and they have to sell, that is going to throw an awful lot of open land onto the market.
Right.
And the most logical people to pick up on that are going to be the developers. And what you will see is a building boom in the town of Bethlehem.
Mhm.
And so that the nature, the character of Bethlehem is going to change. What is somewhat, very rural to a large extent. It's a nice mix between city and rural. Will become much more citified because there are just going to be much more people. And of course, with much more people, there's an impact on all of the service levels. So it brings along with it its own set of problems. But I think that this one event is going to change the composition. And the other thing that worries me a little bit, because I've heard, I've read in the Spotlight, conversations that homeowners have had with the company that did the assessment.
Oh.
And I'm just not comfortable with the kind of responses that they're getting. They seem to be somewhat non-professional. It is what it is, and we looked at yours, but we didn't look at the other three, and
They
we're
didn't
not
have
going to.
enough time.
They didn't have enough time.
Right.
Those are not adequate responses in my mind to people who are now looking at making a major life change because of this one event.
And there's an appeal process also.
There's an appeal process.
So-
There's a fairly lengthy appeal process.
So all of these, do the higher taxes go into effect, and then during the appeal process, or is it stayed, and you don't have to pay the higher tax until the appeal is
the appeal process is going on now,
right?
and I think that the cutoff date for all the decisions is like July 1st. That's when they finalize the assessed values. And then those assessed values will be used on the school tax bills that will come out in September or October, whenever that is. I think it's September.
So all the appeals will be done by July 1.
You hope so, yeah.
You hope
I mean, you have other avenues. Once that process is, you can go to small claims court. There's some limited appeal process there. And adjustments can always be made after the fact, and you can appeal every year. But the majority of it is going to be done by July 1st.
And do you think that through the appeal process, these large landowners might be appeased a little?
I think they'll probably get some appeasement, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near what they're hoping for. And I worry about those people who are not as attuned to the process, either because they are not on the internet. They may not read the Spotlight. They get their bill and they say, it's gone up and that's what it is, so I'll go ahead and pay it.
Yeah, but it's public record.
Absolutely.
So the folks who are organizing this these protests could find out who these large landowners, and if they're not on the internet, they can go knocking on their door and saying, "Hey, come on out. We're organizing," and they can get them. I mean, it takes footwork. So
it takes a lot of
grassroots,
footwork.
as you know from an elected official.
Absolutely.
So I also wanted, you had in South Bethlehem there was this plant that their agreement with the town had expired, and the taxes actually went way down on this plant, cogen plant or something, or.
Oh well, what happened was.
And I'm just wondering if the town is preparing itself for another issue like that, because taxes had to go up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because of that issue.
It was a pilot program that was, I think, a 20-year pilot program that eventually ran its course, and all of a sudden, where they were paying taxes up here because of that pilot program, when it ran out, their tax came down here, and I think it was like a $1.3 million hit.
That's right.
That the town took, that all of us had to
shoulder the burden. Right.
Absolutely.
So wouldn't this compensate for having for anything like that happening again? Aren't they learning from that lesson? And if something else would come along, that maybe they have a bigger rainy day fund where you don't have to hike property taxes so high?
I don't know what their plans are on that. I would hope that as we do pilot programs in order to entice businesses to come in, that we remember that lesson, so that we don't get hit as we did. Because you're writing a check that you're not cashing for 20 years, but when you have to cash it, it really hurts.
Yeah, and no one saved any of it for the rainy day fund.
No, well,
because it poured.
The rainy day fund got all used up.
Well, that's what I mean. It poured, right?
Yeah.
They didn't budgeted properly, even with whether it's Republican administrations or Democratic administrations. It's just wasn't done right. So,
Well, they're always walking the line. They're trying to minimize the tax impact, and to maximize what you have in the funds, but they're at counter purposes. And, when you're up for election,
yeah.
You shift the money into so.
Okay.
We're out of time. We had a good you say it a little Yiddish schmooze. Yeah. We were talking very nicely, but I want to say thank you to Rich Mendick, and you're doing well for the county, and
Thank you.
and
Very
continue
welcome.
with your good work with good health.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.